I've had a haircut. Haircut. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the Harvey Weinstein sex abuse scandal. And right off the bat, I think it's disgusting what he did. And there's no defense of it, no moral defense. And the whole casting couch thing in film and TV industry is deplorable. I'm hearing people, directors and producers and actors on the news saying, it's about time we tackle this problem. Well, yeah, and the time to have tackled that problem is any time in the last 100 years. This has always been a problem, and the abuse has been institutionalized for decades, a century. Just Google, just look up the Thomas Ince murder and scandal, the Fatty Arbuckle scandal. Go and look it up. Go and look up the Hayes Code and why that was introduced. So it's been there all along, this abuse. But the abuse isn't. It's not just sexual. It's a kind of manifestation. That's the ultimate extreme of abuse in the industry. There's a lot of bullying and a lot of mental abuse, and there's a lot of abuse of power. I can recommend a film with Kevin Spacey called Swimming with Sharks, and a lot of Kevin Spacey's screen persona, I think, has been satirized and parodied, particularly around that film. He plays a Hollywood executive who has a new kind of intern who he bullies relentlessly and abuses his power over him almost every day. It's not sexual in the film. Oh, it's been a while since I've seen it. There may be a scene where that happens, but he uses mind games and contradictory orders and capricious behaviour because he can, because he's an executive. And the whole point about the film and TV industry in real life, as well as depicted in this film, is that it's designed to keep people out. So a lot of people want to be in the film industry, and there are thousands of applicants for every job, and so it can't give jobs to everyone. So it's come up with its own method of discouraging people. And no matter what, if you see advertised in say, page of the Guardian or Sight and Sound magazine or online film industry journals, and they'll say there's a new scheme to encourage young filmmakers and new filmmakers, and you'll learn from top industry professionals, and it will give you a leg up in the industry. Well, it won't really. It's a scheme, it's experience, and some of these schemes could be invaluable in giving you experience, but it won't guarantee you a place in the industry. You still have to pay your dues, and you pay your dues very early on. So you enter as a runner, a production system very low down, and even if you came out of film school and you know lots, and your tutors loved you at film school, and you did a really good film, and you know a lot already, you've read, that doesn't cut it in the professional industry. In the professional industry, you're down at the bottom, and you will not use any of the knowledge you've accumulated. You'll be asked to make teas, you'll be asked to clean toilets, you'll be asked to bend to every whim of a producer. Now, that won't necessarily be sexual. That's a particular type of thing. I personally don't have any experience, or I haven't witnessed any sexual abuse on a film set, but I've seen lots of bullying and I've seen lots of exploitation. It's happened to me. So you have to meet all these demands of everybody senior in your production crew. So you've got to make tea, you've got to make it often, but not too often. It's got to be right. And anybody who comes up to you and asks for a specific order, you've got to go and do it. And sometimes that will contradict. So a camera team will ask you to go and get some lights and some cables and lenses and filters and all that, and then a producer will come along 30 seconds later and to say, oh, you now need to go here and look after these actors. These actors will need refreshments, and they will need rewritten pages of script delivered to them. Go and do that. And you can't say, but the camera crew want me to do this, because the producer will just look at you for 2 seconds and no, you have to do this. I outrank them. So, and why are you bringing this up? Why are you giving me another problem? Why are you giving me this problem that you've been asked to do this by the camera crew, and I'm asking you to do this? I'm more important. and then you go off and do that, and then the camera crew get angry that you didn't carry out their instruction. Of course, that producer's not going to back you up. That producer, most producers, will not say, no, don't blame him or her. Don't blame them. They're new on the set. Okay, they're a trainee, and it's our duty to train them so that they will one day follow in our footsteps. No, the producer will just absolutely drop you in it. You'll be hated by the camera crew, and you fail just there, right then, in your first job. You did what you thought was the right thing to do, but to the higher-ups, you failed. You might not get back the next day. You won't get that second job. Failed at the first hurdle. That's what they do. And it goes on from there. There's a lot of this kind of bullying, you know. I've been yelled at more times. I've seen runners just absolutely reduced to tears in the industry. And, you know, I know directors of photography and producers who love it. They love seeing junior members squirm. I've met a couple of really disgusting film and video editors who just, you know, they derive pleasure from reducing the runners to tears. And now with actors, of course, there's a whole glamorous thing, particularly if you're an attractive female actress. And you know, I've seen directors and producers. I don't know if this counts as sexual abuse or not, but what they do is that they ask them to do publicity shots, kind of risque, you know, sort of provocative poses, and wearing costumes, risque costumes, and those costumes will never make it into the film. You won't see them in the film, and these publicity shots won't end up in any promotional materials. And then they might be asked to film a scene that's a little bit racy and a little bit provocative. The director's thinking outside the box, you know, let's go a bit off script. I know it's not the script and we didn't storyboard it, but let's do this, let's spice things up. And then later the director will say, well, we shot all that stuff, that risque stuff, but it didn't look good, it didn't come out right, so it's not going in the film. And you just wonder, well, where did all those photos and that footage end up? There's a lot of voyeurism in film industry. I mean, it's one thing to try and make your actors look attractive and appealing as possible, because, you know, it sells. If you're trying to get the impression, your protagonists, your male and female protagonists, are kind of aspirational people. They're kind of slightly glamorous, and we have glamorous people. You know, you don't want to put them in hijabs or boiler suits, or you know, unless that's the kind of look you're going for. So you try and make them look good, but there's a line between presenting your actors and actresses in the best way possible, so they look appealing, and then going into voyeurism, just a sort of, you know, leering. That's the word I'm looking for. And there's a lot of leering, and there's a lot of exploitation, and of course, people. This is the conditions. You know, what happened with Weinstein is just the Weinstein, whatever, is you know, is kind of like the going up to 11 on the abuse scale. I'm talking about the conditions levels 1 to 4, as it were. So to get manipulating people, getting them to perform jobs that are well beneath them, and if they don't do that, if they don't kowtow to you, and you know, you can push them around, and then they have to say please and thank you, and then show up the next day and do it again and again and again every day. And then even then there's no guarantee. You think, I'm going to stick with this, I'm going to take everything they're going to throw at me, and then they'll see my quality, they'll see that I am determined, and I'll get another job. No, you get to the end of that and you'll get your yesterday's news. You really are. There's so many thousands of people wanting to get into the film industry. I don't care, they'll use you for that film and you stuck the course, but there's no guarantee that they'll ever give you another job, and you're back to square one, making more teams, bending to every whim. So the conditions in the industry are there right from the beginning. And then you have somebody like Weinstein who has power and excess, and he can go to these sexual abuse levels, but he's been allowed to do that probably throughout his career, because people think, okay, I can use people who are under me, because there's so many hopefuls, I can use them. And that is the problem in the industry, and that's what I want people to tackle and call out whenever you see it. So I might talk more about this in another video, but until then, I'll see you later.